Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be explaining the basics of how to set up Blender for importing, exporting, and creating animations for Super Smash Bros. Brawl. You're going to need Blender 2.92, a Brawl model file and motion file, Brawl Crate, WinImage, and the Brawl anim import/export script, and IK/FK snapping script. All of these are linked in the description down below. First, let's extract a model from our Brawl SD. Currently, the Brawl file partition is offline, so I can't direct you to that, but there are plenty of Brawl mods that you can download, such as Project Plus and PMEX Remix, where you can source model and animation files. I will also be linking both of these in the description down below. Open WinImage, and when you get the boot screen, hit OK. Click on the Open icon in the top left corner. Then, go through the directory to the sd.raw. The sd.raw is where all of the files for your mod are located. I'll open this up. For me, this is, now that you're here, double-click on the folder that says ex underscore the name of your mod. For this, it's Remix. Now, double-click on pf. Then, double-click on Fighter. Now, click on the Fighter folder for the fighter you want to modify. In this case, I'll be selecting Dr. Luigi. The first file you're going to look for is fit name of your character, 2 numbers at the end. For the default costume, those numbers will almost always be 00. So for this case, I'm going to take fit Dr. Luigi 00.pack and then drag it into this folder I have set up here. Now, you'll look for the file that says fit Dr. Luigi motion, etc. It's obviously not Dr. Luigi if you're not using Dr. Luigi. It's fit character name, motion, etc. Some characters do not have the etc. at the end. There are specific reasons why they don't have this, but it doesn't matter, they just need to be a motion file. Take this file and drag it into your folder. Now, we can close out of WinImage. Next, we'll open Brawl Crate. Now that it's open, let's drag the model file into Brawl Crate. Expand the first tab, which says Model Data in brackets 0. Then, expand 3D Models in parentheses and W4R. Now that you have MDL0 fit whatever your character's name is, 00, and sometimes it's a different character depending on who they're cloned over, right-click on this, and then on the drop-down menu, go to Export. If you're in the file or the folder that you want to be in, hit Save. Now, right-click it again, hit Export. At this time, go to the drop-down menu down here and click on Day. So that way you don't export this one as an MDL0, but instead as a .dae. Hit Save once you have it in the folder you want. Open Textures and W4R, and then Shift Select by clicking on this with the left click, holding Shift, and then clicking on the bottom texture with Shift, right click, and then click on Export Selected. It will default to the same folder as the .dae and the .mdl0. Hit Select Folder, and a pop-up menu will appear, usually in the top left corner of your screen. For our purposes, make sure to keep the textures as .pngs. Hit OK. And all of the files are exported and good to go. Your installations will have a shortcut available readily. Now that we've opened Blender, close the boot screen, and let's go over some basics of how to use Blender. This tutorial assumes that you have never used Blender ever, but that you have done some 3D animation before. So let's explain how best to move around in Blender. In order to select an object in Blender, use left click. In order to create the submenu for sub-actions in Blender, click right-click. In order to move the angle of your view, hold down the middle mouse button on your mouse. In order to zoom in, use your scroll wheel to zoom in for up, or zoom out for down. In order to move around your viewport, hold down Shift, the middle mouse button, and drag your mouse around. Now, we're going to explain how to snap your camera view to certain axes. For each of these steps, make sure that your mouse is within the viewport. In order to flip the view to the x-axis, hit 1 on the keypad. In order to flip it to the opposite side, hold Control and then hit 1. In order to view across the y-axis, hit 3. And then to view on the opposite side, hit Control, then V. In order to view from a bird's eye perspective, hit 7 on the numpad, and then in order to view from the bottom facing up, hold Control and then hit 7. These are the ones that we'll need the most during this tutorial, but for a quick explanation of what the other buttons do, 9 flips the view automatically, 5 changes the view from a flat plane to a 3D plane. And then 8, 2, 4, and 6 all change the orientation of your camera by about 15 to 20 degrees in up, down, left, and right, respectively. Now, these controls are mostly non-intuitive, but you'll get the hang of it as we go along, and I will try and remind you of each control when we reach them. Now, let's get started on the actual model importing process. First, left-click on the cube, right-click to show up the submenu, and then scroll down to delete. Next, go up to the Edit tab, go down to Preferences, and now we're going to be installing the add-ons that we downloaded. Hit Install, then go to, in your directory, the folder location for your Python scripts. So in this case, it will be brawl_bb, and then you can hit back here, or go back to the same location, and then go to snapfk to IK. For this tutorial, we won't be needing simple retarget, so I won't be installing it. Now, in order to make sure that they're installed, search using the search bar, Brawl, make sure that this is checked, and then snap FK to IK, and it'll be there. If they aren't checked, make sure they are. Exit out of the Preferences menu, and now click on File on the top left. Go to Import, and then once you are in the hover menu, go down to Brawlbox Model. Now, go to your folder, and then click the file that we exported from Brawlcrate. As you can see, we've now imported our model. There are a couple different issues with importing that I'm definitely okay to go over in a future video if it becomes a problem for a lot of people. Now that our model is imported, go to the top right and click on the checkerboard circle button, which is also known as viewport shading, and you'll be able to see your textures in-game. Now, we're going to set up the model with IK-Rig compatibility. What IK-Rigs are is a sort of anchor chain for a different limb or aspect of the body, so that way you don't have to individually pose each bone on the body. It'll make more sense when we go in depth with the functionality of it once we import it, or rig it to the character. In order to start creating your character's IK-Rig, go to, on the right, the icon with the wrench and the screwdriver. Then in this menu, go to the brawl box drop-down menu, and under rigging mode, hit enter. Your model will now be translucent, and first we'll be making the left leg. Click on the bottom bone on your leg. You can see it goes L leg, L knee, L foot E, and then L foot J. Not every leg bone or leg bone structure will look the same in a brawl, but for this case, it ends with L foot J. Never end your IK rigs with the toe bone that's in the front of the leg. Only do it with the bone that's at the bottom of the heel. Now that you have this selected, hit E on your keyboard, and you'll see that a bone has started to come up from the head of the bone, the L foot J bone. When you're happy with the place that the bone is, hit left click, and then your bone will be placed. Next, left click on the bone that you've created, right click to bring up the submenu, scroll down to parent, hover for a bit to make the submenu show up, and then hit clear. Then when the next menu pops up, hit clear again. This will mean that your bone will now move independent of the original bone. Now let's do this for all the other 3 limbs that we're going to be creating a rig for. Go to the right leg, R foot J in our case, hit E, bring the bone down. Make sure that you bring the bone in the correct direction, orientation, I should say, of the leg. That's very important. So in this case, the bone structure is heading down, so we brought the bone down. Now click on the bone you created, rfootj.001, right click, go to parent, and then hit clear, and then clear again. Next, go to the left arm, go to L hand N, hit E in order to create the bone. Left click when you're satisfied with where the bone ends up. Left click on the bone itself, right click, go to the parent menu, hit clear, and then clear parent N, hit E, hit left click on the bone, right click, parent, clear, and then clear parent. Tools icon, which is the screwdriver and the wrench, exit rigging mode, and then let's go back to L foot J. You can always check that the name is correct of the bone by going to the bone properties tab. Now that we're here, click on the icon that's below bone properties, which is called bone constraint properties. It's a bone with the chain around it. Click on that, and then add bone constraint. In the drop-down menu under tracking, there will be a submenu called inverse kinematics. Click on that, and it'll create an IK anchor. Go to target, and for all brawl models, they will ask you to use _anim _object _armature. Now, select the bone that you created. In this case, you can type it in to search. So in our case, it would be lfootj.001. Now go to chain length. For us, we will have a chain length of 3. Make sure that the very faint yellow line goes to the top bone of the leg and not further to the hip, like in this case. Make sure it just ends at the leg. Now, hit the rotation button, and your left leg, IK I should say, will be good to go. Except for Luigi, it isn't. In this case, and there are only a few cases like this, where the bone will not bend properly, as you can see, make sure that the front of the bone, or the top bone, is rotated just a bit forward. Now, you'll see that when we move the leg, it'll bend normally. Now let's go through this process for all of the IK bones. Go to R foot J, make sure you're in the bone constraints tab, add bone constraint, inverse kinematics, target _anim _obj _armature, bone R foot j.001, chain of 3, and then rotation. Go to lhand n, add bone constraint, inverse kinematics, underscore anim obj armature. Search for lhand underscore .001. For this, we'll use a chain length of 3 as well. Make sure that it only goes to L shoulder J, which is this bone, rather than L shoulder N. Now hit rotation on L hand N. Then go over to R hand N, add bone constraint, inverse kinematics, anim object armature, R hand .001, rotation, and chain length. Now, our IK anchors are all set up and ready to be used. It seems to me that all of Dr. Luigi's bones will need to be bent just a little in order to bend properly, which is not a problem. And now, our model is ready to be animated. Now, let's set up the proper workspace for animation. At the top, go to the animation workspace. You can see that we'll need to set up the texture view again. So click on the textured viewport shading once again. Let's hit Control and 3 on the numpad in order to get a side view of the character. Next, click on the bottom right of the left viewport in order to create a new channel. Or I guess I should say window. For the top left, we want this to be a dope sheet, as the dope sheet will allow us to individually adjust keyframes for each bone. Click on the top left icon, which says Editor Type. Then, next, where it says Dope Sheet at the top, click on that and go to Action Editor. I prefer the Action Editor menu to be at the bottom, so right-click on a blank spot on the menu and hit Flip to Bottom. Now hit New on the bottom, and this will create an action. For this extra view space, or viewport that we've created, go to the icon that says Editor Type, click on it, and then go to Graph Editor. This will allow you to adjust the interpolation of each new keyframe that you add. Now, a personal thing that I like to do, but you don't have to do it, is hit the auto keying button. This will make it so that each adjustment that you make to a keyframe, such as, let's say, moving Dr. Luigi's bust, will result in it being keyframed. Also, if you want your toolbar to appear, just hit T while your mouse is in the viewport. And now, you can have your tools available whenever you need. With that, our animation setup is complete. Make sure to save your file. Go up to File, then go down to Save As. Don't use Save, because if you use Save, you cannot confirm where it will save. In this case, I'm going to save our untitled blend to our folder that we're using. When you're happy with where you selected, and if you change its name to what you want, hit Save As, and you're good to go. Now that we've set up our Blender file, we can properly import. And now, let's open Brawlcrate, and then drag in our character's motion file. Now that you're in here, expand Fit Your Character Name, motion zeros, for your character. In this case, we will be exporting Weight 1, as it's the simplest for us. Weight 1 being the idle animation that each character has. When you have this screen open, go to this drop down, you'll be out of the blend scene. Now, select any bone on the armature, go up to File, down to Import, and then in the drop-down menu, hit Anim. Go to the animation that we exported, which is Way1 Anim, and there you go, our animation is imported. Now, don't be worried if the animation seems off because the legs are in the wrong spot. Remember, our IK anchors, being this bone, this bone, this bone, and this bone, are still in the same spot that they were in the T-pose. If we want to see the original animation unedited, you can just deactivate each IK. And you can reactivate them as well, or as you wish. And now, we have our animation playing in Blender. Another thing that is worthwhile to add, if you would like the animation viewport to play at 60 frames per second, go to Output Properties, which is the printer icon on the right. Then, in the Dimensions tab, go down to frame rate where it says 24, and then scroll down to 60. Now we have our animation. I'm going to leave each IK bone in their original position for this demonstration for when we export the animation. And technically, this is the part where now you can create your own animation. Do whatever you wish. I can't teach you how to animate. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to teach you how to get the steps available to animate properly. So now that you've created your animation, let's say, you need to export it. The best way to do that is going to start like this. Go to Pose, in the drop-down menu, go to Animation, and then go to Bake Action. Make sure that your start frame and end frame are in the grid spot, and make sure that your start frame is at or before frame 1. Brawl Crate does not like having animations imported that start on frame 0 or later than frame 1. Deselect only selected bones so that each bone that's necessary to be keyframed will be keyframed. Go to Visual Keying, Clear Constraints, and Clean Curves. Hit OK, and then you can see over here all of our bones have been keyframed for the animation, and then play. Go up to File, go down to Export, scroll down to Brawlbox Anim. In this menu, Export, you can change the name of the animation if you want, but I won't. Hit Brawlbox.anim export, and then we can close out of our blend scene. Please note that you should always save your blend scene before you start exporting an animation. If you save a blend scene after you have baked your keyframes, you'll have to redo your IK rig entirely, and that's not fun. Now that we've exported our animation, as you can see here, go back to your motion file in Brawl Crate, and there are two different ways to import this. You can either right-click on the red B-Res here under Fit Luigi Motion or Fit Your Character Motion, go to Import, Model Animations, and then your new animation. As you can see, it's ended up at the bottom here, and then you'll know that it's been put into the file if you hit save, and it has file size to it now. The other thing that we can do is we can go up to an animation that we want to replace, right click it, hit replace, and then click on the animation. Then you save it, and there you go. Your animation is imported into the motion, and you can put your motion file back in Brawl where you found it at the beginning of the video, and it'll be imported into the game. If you want to check before you do this, however, that it's correct, open up your model, expand Model Data 0, 3D Models, and Fit Luigi 00, right-click that, and hit Preview. This will open up the Preview viewport. In order to control Brawl Crane, use the scroll wheel to scroll in and out. Just right-click and drag your mouse to move the viewport position, and then control right-click to change the angle of your viewport. Next, click on all of the bars around the screen, and under Animations, hit Load. Then hit your motion, and then scroll down or use the search bar to find the animation you imported. And as you can see, it is exactly like we saw it in Blender. So there you go. That's how you import and export and create animations in Blender for Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, comments, or anything in terms of feedback down below, please put them in the comments. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.